Welcome to the fascinating world of neuroscience. Today, we are going to explore one of the most fundamental mysteries of the human brain, neural coding. Have you ever wondered how a physical touch, a bright light, or a beautiful sound actually gets inside your head? How does a biological organ made of cells and water process the complex reality around us? By the end of this video, you will understand the secret language of the nervous system. Let us dive in and decode the brain together. To understand this secret language, imagine you are trying to send a secret message to a friend across a pitch-black room using only a flashlight. You cannot speak, so you have to rely entirely on turning the light on and off in a specific pattern to convey your thoughts. The brain faces a very similar problem when trying to communicate information from your senses to your muscles. It is trapped in the dark vault of your skull. It needs a way to translate the vibrant, dynamic outside world into a format it can transmit and understand. Building on our flashlight analogy, instead of a physical light, your brain uses tiny electrical flashes called action potentials, or spikes. Whenever a sensory receptor detects a stimulus, like the pressure of a touch, it converts that physical energy into an electrical signal. The way the brain translates real-world information into these electrical flashes is what we call neural coding. It is literally the secret language of the nervous system, allowing billions of individual cells to talk to each other seamlessly and instantly across your entire body. Now that we have an intuitive grasp, let us look at the formal definition. In neuroscience terms, neural coding refers to the mechanism by which the nervous system represents and processes information through the pattern and frequency of action potentials. Here is the crucial catch. All action potentials are roughly the exact same size and shape. Because the amplitude, or height, of a spike cannot change to show a stronger stimulus, the neuron must change the pattern or timing of the spikes instead. Scientists study this to decode how specific sequences correspond to specific thoughts or sensations. You might be wondering why decoding this electrical language is so important. Understanding neural coding is absolutely critical because it forms the foundation of everything we perceive, think, and do. In the real world, this concept is the driving force behind life-changing neuroprosthetics, such as robotic arms for amputees or cochlear implants for the deaf. If we know the exact code the brain uses to say, "move my arm up," we can program a computer chip to read that code and move a robotic arm. It is the ultimate translation dictionary between biology and behavior. This brings us to the mathematical side of things. The most fundamental type of neural coding is called rate coding. This theory suggests that the intensity of a stimulus is encoded by the number of spikes fired in a given time window. To quantify this, we calculate the average firing rate using a simple formula. R equals N divided by T. Here, R represents the average firing rate in hertz, which means spikes per second. The variable N stands for the total number of action potentials, and T represents the total duration of that time window in seconds. If the stimulus intensity increases, the number of spikes increases, which causes the firing rate to increase, signaling a stronger sensation. Let us see this formula in action with a concrete example. Imagine a sensory neuron in your fingertip is exposed to a light touch for 2 seconds, producing 10 spikes. We want to find the average firing rate. We start by identifying our given values. The time window t is 2 seconds, and the number of spikes, n, is 10. We substitute these into our formula, dividing 10 by 2. The result is 5, meaning the neuron fires at a rate of 5 hertz. This tells us that a gentle stimulus produces a relatively slow, relaxed train of action potentials, which the brain interprets as a soft, harmless contact. Now, let us compare that to a heavy pressure scenario on the exact same spot. This time, the heavy pressure is applied for the same 2 seconds, but it produces 50 spikes. We substitute the new, higher spike count of 50 into the numerator, keeping the time window at 2 seconds in the denominator. Dividing 50 by 2 gives us a firing rate of 25 hertz. By comparing the two answers, we can physically interpret that the brain knows the second touch was much harder, simply because the firing rate jumped from 5 hertz to 25 hertz. The intensity of a feeling is directly proportional to the speed of the electrical spikes. To truly cement this idea, let us look at a visual representation of what we just calculated. On the screen, you see 2 panels comparing a weak stimulus on the left to a strong stimulus on the right. The top graphs show the physical stimulus being applied, while the bottom graphs show the neuron's electrical response over time. Notice how the height, or amplitude, of every single spike is exactly the same in both cases. The only difference is the spacing. The weak stimulus generates a sparse, low-frequency spike train. The strong stimulus generates a dense, high-frequency spike train. This diagram perfectly illustrates how the brain reads frequency to understand physical intensity. While rate coding explains how we feel intensity, it is not the whole story. No single neuron controls complex movements or thoughts alone. Instead, the brain uses a concept called population coding. In population coding, the combined activity of many neurons dictates the final behavioral outcome. Think of it like a democracy, where thousands of cells are casting their votes at the same time. The nervous system listens to the entire chorus of different neural voices and calculates the consensus to make a single, precise decision, like which direction to move your hand. To understand how the brain tallies these votes, let us look at a simplified mathematical model for movement direction. We can define a simple population vector score using the formula V equals RA minus RB. In this equation, V is the overall population vector score. We define a positive score as a leftward movement and a negative score as a rightward movement. The variable RA represents the firing rate of neuron A, which prefers moving left. The variable RB represents the firing rate of neuron B, which prefers moving right. By subtracting the opposing signals, the brain finds the balance of activity. Let us apply this formula to a laboratory example. Imagine 2 motor neurons controlling a robotic joystick. Neuron A fires at 40 hertz, voting to move left. Neuron B fires at 10 hertz, voting to move right. We need to determine which way the joystick will actually move. We begin by substituting the firing rate of neuron A, 40, into the first part of our equation. Next, we subtract the firing rate of neuron B, which is 10. This simple subtraction represents the competing votes. The final calculated score is a positive 30. Because a positive score means leftward movement, this mathematical result tells us the overall neural population strongly favors moving left. We have covered a lot of ground today, so let us review the most important ideas. First, neural coding is the essential language of the brain, translating physical realities into electrical spike patterns. Second, we learned that rate coding uses the frequency of action potentials to communicate the intensity of a stimulus. The faster the spikes, the stronger the feeling. Finally, we saw how population coding uses the combined activity of many neurons to represent complex information, like movement direction. By mastering these concepts, you now understand the fundamental mechanism by which your nervous system processes every sensation and action in your daily life. Great job!